Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, columnist Ryan Karchi. The Ginger's in the back. It's like an hour to New Year's. But anyway,
Peace.
peace.
We're done.
We're done, we're running.
Yeah,
Anyway,
man, it's good
we're
game.
making this really quick, yeah. Uh, but anyway, we should actually talk about it because it's pretty much a huge win. I mean, this might be.
Bigger than Kentucky, I think.
I think so too. It's a Big Ten game, and this was a team that had just been throttling them. Since the sanctions since Tom Crean took over, and it's a physical team, especially after Michigan State when you kind of saw what a physical team could do, to Indiana, what they could do to take away Cody Zeller, and Indiana came out and just after going down 7-0 at the beginning and down by I think 10 early in the first half, just hung with them possession by possession. There was 11 lead changes in this game, 9 ties, basically was just dead even the entire way. And when it came down to it, when somebody needed to make a play and change the game, that's what Indiana did. In the last, I think, 124, I think they caused 4 turnovers. Didn't allow a bucket in the last 153, and just stiffened up on defense. And probably the best stretches of defense when it really had to happen that I've seen this team make. Probably almost questioned
They got
the
better
best.
on defense as the game went on.
Definitely.
And without they didn't have Cody Zeller for the last 2.5 minutes, and they only scored 2 field goals, but they dominated the last 2 minutes. I mean, it was all about defense. It was it was just better basketball. I know.
Yeah.
Crean kind of said afterwards that it was some of the best basketball he's seen, and I can agree with that. I think they played better basketball in this game than they did against Kentucky, especially down the stretch. And I think they forced a lot of mistakes, and that's one of the strengths of this team. And I was looking at a stat a few minutes ago, and it was they're forcing turnovers on 25% of their opponent's possessions, which is good for 16th best in Division I, and that's a big reason why they won this game, why they won the Kentucky game. It's 33 turnovers to 2 of the best teams in the country combined.
Right.
So that's impressive.
Absolutely. We were smiling just because the janitorial stuff does not like us at all right now. But anyway, yeah, I mean, definitely, and they just managed to just man up eventually, just to play straight up man to man and just not let anybody get a lane, not let anybody get a place to go, and they couldn't even get the ball to Solinger either. I mean, they were able to get it to him pretty easily early, but down the stretch, I mean, when
They doubled him very effectively.
very effectively, they got to him when they had to. They were quick to the double.
It seemed it seemed.
And they also
It seemed like they weren't quick to the double. It seemed like they had a point where they wanted to double him, like they
Right,
let him
actually,
get
that's
that
true.
far, and then the double would come. I don't
Right.
know why. And
Well, 'cause
sometimes
he's
he
so
was
good
able
at
to
passing
pass
out of it. Yeah.
I guess probably it was because they figured that would make rotations easier. It wouldn't extend the defense as far.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
they could just slide everybody over. But
Because that's something he was able to do really early was pass out of the double team, and you can really watch. I mean, that's I think what Zeller eventually wants to get to is someone who can pass that well out of a double team. Like he kind of controls it. It's almost like he asks for it and says, "Okay,
Yeah.
who are you giving me? Who do I have to find? I can
and there
throw
were
it
times
directly
where
over
it
my
seemed
head."
like he was frustrated, especially in the second half, at his teammates for not being able
Yeah.
to give him, or maybe it seemed like there were a couple times they passed up open shots.
Sure.
Maybe he was frustrated that they weren't using the double team the way that he wanted them to.
Right, and what they did really well, I think, is they put Ohio State was really on the defensive. I think, especially when it came to the foul trouble, guys that were out for a while that really took them out of their game. I mean, Cody Zeller fouled out, but that was the only real casualty that Indiana suffered because of foul trouble. Ohio State didn't lose anybody to being fouled out, but Solinger, William Buford, and Deshaun Thomas were out for lengthy periods of time because of foul trouble. They all had 2 by I think the 5-minute mark of the first half. Buford had 4 by like the 16-minute mark of the second half. All those guys picked up 4 fouls, and they never really, after the opening minutes, never really had a situation where they were playing all those guys at once. And when they came back, they just weren't the same. And by that point, Indiana had momentum. They had kind of control of the game basically, and those guys were never able to really beat them. I mean, Buford early on was hitting some shots, some just fadeaway,
With Oladipo, good defense.
Yeah, exactly.
NBA,
Oladipo in his
NBA
face.
shots.
Exactly.
NBA player shots.
They played
Yes,
defensive
that's
matchups.
exactly right.
I thought pretty well tonight. They did enough against Solinger. They threw so many different things at Aaron Craft. I
Right.
think it wasn't just the way they defended him. It was that it was sometimes it was Victor and his length, and sometimes it was Remy and his energy. And sometimes it was Riddell who is not as good of a defender as those two, but is experienced enough to kind of know how to guile his way into doing some good things. And it just seemed like Kraft could never really get a handle on how to attack especially as he needed to do
Yeah.
more later in the game with guys
Right.
in foul trouble.
I think
and guys
He
not-
wasn't
they had to
worried.
figure out two things. I mean, I think first off, they had to find a way to get Jordan Hulse off of him. And Jordy was much better offensively tonight. Huge 17 points. Definitely
Game
showed
high,
that
wasn't
A,
game high
a
17 points.
deceptive 17 points.
Yeah, but they were big at the end. They were just
big,
huge
yeah.
shots, and he was 4 for 5 from three, and basically he did exactly what you think he
After
did.
being 0
after
for
the
4
Michigan
from
State game.
3.
Yeah, he
against
did exactly
Michigan
what you think he did after the Michigan State game. If you know Jordan Hulse, you're not surprised one bit. He got off the bus and he went to cook hall, and basically just had to sort of expunge that from himself more or less, and came in and shot the way he was supposed to shoot. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a really good point guard, Jordy's at a disadvantage on defense. He's just gonna he has a hard time shutting down those guys.
Well,
so
and they
you
switched
try-
they switched him off
Yeah.
of Kraft.
It
in the
took
second
like
half,
it took
and-
like 10 minutes. I mean, it took like 10, 15 minutes for them to do it. It helped that they had foul trouble because it allowed them to take Oladipo off of Buford and allow him to get into him. And I think they realized at that point, okay, well, if we can't go back to Jordy on this guy, we've got to put somebody else on him. And it made sense. If you put Verdell on him as opposed to Jordy, you've got a better shot. Linzel Smith was kind of the place, I think. As good as he played, he had 12 points. That was kind of the place to put Jordy. But once they kind of figured that out, once they figured out what they could do to Kraft, and they managed to just kind of keep him, when he was driving the lane, he could do whatever he wanted. But once he stopped doing that, that kind of threw Ohio State's entire offensive game plan, I thought, off guard more or less.
I think the thing that just jumps out most, more than anything else, after watching for 3 years, this program's inability to close out games, this program's inability to handle big moments.
Right.
I mean, and I think the way I wrote it in my post-game column was that Indiana kept swinging until Ohio State ran out of punches. I mean, this is all the things that Indiana did tonight are the things that they were not capable of doing the last 3
Sure.
years.
Absolutely.
At some point they would have folded. Some possession they would have taken a bad shot, or they would have screwed up a defensive matchup, or even they
Right.
would have played it right, and Ohio State scores and they don't know how to recover.
Right. Exactly.
And they take one of the most efficient teams in the country, one of the most talented teams in the country, and they just outplayed them at the end of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
against Kentucky, that was a great game, but Kentucky was almost this feeling like Indiana built that like 10-point lead and then just kind of
Right,
hung on
just
to
hung
it
on to it,
as
yeah.
Kentucky slowly whittled it down and then obviously got to the position where Watford hit the three. This was a game that Indiana won because it outplayed the elite team. I mean, nobody
Even
would be
up
shocked
possession
to
by
see
possession.
Ohio State in the
In
national
title
title game in New
Yeah.
Orleans in April. And Indiana just outplayed them down the stretch. They were just,
sure.
they were the better team in crucial moments and in moments where you just would not have imagined Indiana had that capacity. If I told you that this was the way this game was going to go, even in August or September, or maybe even at the end of November, you would still have said, "I don't believe you."
Sure.
I
would have wondered after the Michigan State game.
The way this team has grown up, I mean, just continues to impress. It's little things. It's Jordan Hulse being guarded by William Buford and understanding
And just
to
crossing
keep
him up and
attacking
knocking
him.
it. Yeah,
well, and
exactly.
it's more just the idea. He's got 4 fouls. He's not going to work you defensively because he's terrified of picking up that last foul.
Right.
So attack him, and then he did it once, and Buford
Yeah.
basically just let him
go by
and so
him.
he did
Yeah.
it again, and he did it again. It's these little things, just these little like basketball IQ things that Indiana was never
Yeah, it's so
able
much
to
better.
do before. And they just understand now, and I mean,
Right.
I don't mean to sound like I'm just gushing over this team.
Well, you are, but that's okay.
But it's really impressive at how quickly all of that seemed to come to this team. All of the
Yeah.
poise and all of the savvy and all of the court intelligence seemed to come to this team. And it's not just Cody Zeller.
Sure.
And it's
No,
not just
not at all.
one player or one player's development. It is an overall team thing. This is a good team. Doug Gottlieb is nuts.
And
This is a good team.
I mean,
this
what
is
is-
a team
yeah.
that should win 23, 24, 25 games.
And kind of in that same light, Crean said as much in the post game press conference that it's just a joy for him. He said to be in those huddles at timeouts because he can look into his players' eyes and different than maybe the last few years that they look back at him and they're locked in. He doesn't
Yeah.
have to say anything
They
in the
want.
timeouts.
Yeah.
And he said he can kind of see it in their eyes that they know what needs to be done and they're going to do
Yeah.
it and obviously I wasn't here the last few years, but I don't think that's something he
They're
would have
just
said
in
before.
control. Like before, they knew what they were supposed to do, but now they know how to do it. I mean, I think there was a good moment that I saw. I think Verdell Jones tried to pass to Elston, or Elston tried to pass to Verdell Jones. One way or another, Verdell was in Elston's face the entire way down the floor, and was just like pointing at him and like, "You screwed this up." I don't even know. I can't imagine what he said. On the next possession, Elston scores a bucket and gets a foul, and Verdell was the first one to get him up and hug him, and like Elston hugged him back, like as if to say, like, "Yeah, I understand. This is how we have to operate now. We have to be able to yell at each other and this type of thing." And that's what this group can do. I mean, they hold each other accountable. They keep each other locked in.
There's the memory that jumps out to me is Northwestern last year when Tom Green talked about how he asked basically in the huddle. He said, "Who wants to guard Michael Thompson?" And no one would do it. One player stepped up, and he wouldn't say who it was publicly, but eventually he told Hugh Kellenberger, who used to the old Karchi, that it was Will Sheehy, and that was just
and that was guy who wasn't here
tonight.
That
spoke volumes. Was just the only person who's willing to step up and guard the best guy on the floor that night in a crucial situation late in the game.
Was a freshman.
That doesn't exist here anymore.
No, everybody wants that sign.
What's surprising is just how quickly it's gone away, how quickly it has been replaced by the accountability, the player-driven kind of mentality that you talked about. I think we expected it to come, but just not this fast, not nearly this fast.
No, it helps when you win.
And they're 13-1.
Right, they're 13-1.
Merry New Year.
Happy
Ohio
New
State,
Year.
number 1, number 2. They've never done this before, so
They're not a top 15 team, though. Seriously.
yeah, they're a top 15. So that's it. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll be back. Thanks.